So our next amazing speaker is Catlin Figueiredo, a passionate change maker and award-winning social entrepreneur and founder of Jasiri Australia, a leadership and self-defence initiative created for women experiencing racial or gender discrimination and violence survivors. She is listed in the Forbes Under 30, and Michelle Obama has named her a global climate change maker for gender equality. She is an ambassador to the Alannah and Madeline Foundation and the youngest winner of the Australian Westpac Australian Financial Review 100 Women of Influence. So please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Wow, she wasn't kidding, that light is very bright. Hi everyone, so my name is Catlin Figueiredo. I'm a local Canberra girl, and you know what, I'm just going to take these shoes off because they're too big for me. I just got them today, and you know what, as a leader you can make up your own rules. My entire life I have had the privilege, My entire life, I have had the privilege of being around some incredible leaders. My first leader that I was introduced to was my Avazina. So my Avazina is my grandmother. She is Indian Kenyan. And she told me when I was a little girl stories of her life growing up in Goa, India, and then in Mombasa, Kenya, when she moved at a tender age of 19 to marry my grandfather, my Avo. She told me of her life growing up, of how she had to give up her dreams of becoming a doctor after her father suddenly passed away at age 13. She started working as a secretary. She helped her mother out by making lunches and dinners for her family. And then when my father was about 9 years old, something started shifting in Kenya. Suddenly, they became independent from the British. And because my family were not Kenyan nationals, we were Indian Kenyans, suddenly became really dangerous for my family to stay there. So my Avazina made a really tough decision to uproot her children, 5 under 10 years old. And they came to Australia. And she was telling me the story. And I remember that day, it was on 9/11. This is just before 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden, the TV, I remember my mum was watching the TV and she screamed. We rushed from the table and we were like, what's happening? And my mum was like, there has been a terrorist attack in New York. I was 6 at the time. I turned to my Avazina and I said, what's going on? Why would someone want to do this? And she said, well, Catlin, I don't have any answers for you. But what I want you to remember is that you are going to face immense pressures in your life. The world is not equal. The world is not how we want it to be. But what I want you to remember is that you have the potential to create the world that we all deserve. And she said a word which I've kept with me my entire life, and that word is Jasiri. She said, Baba, you are Jasiri, and I want you to remember that and share it with everyone around you. And Jasiri means courageous and bold in Swahili. And that is what I have been able to take through my entire life. And so when I was asked to do this topic today about, what do we need in 2030? It brought me back to 2015. In 2015, I was working for the United Nations. I was 19 at the time, working with UN Women. And this was the year that a lot of things happened. We had Barack Obama as the leader. It was pretty great. We got a new leader ourselves. Also great, but then, we know what happens. Well, sorry, wrong side. The slides are a bit different. And the world came together to pass the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's 17 ambitious goals that we together as the world wanted to achieve by 2030. 17 goals, over 100 different unique targets wanting to eradicate child poverty, wanting to ensure that we create a world free of the effects of climate change, to ensure that gender equality becomes our reality. Fast forward, we now have the leader of the free world who can create mass nuclear annihilation in 130 characters or less. We are facing catastrophic effects of climate change. And we've seen in the past couple of days that leaders of large countries, even our own, prioritize our economy by digging their head in the coal mine, rather than looking out to our region and recognizing the effects that we are helping to contribute. When other nations are trying to work out how can they save their people. And for some reason, neo-Nazis are back. There are a lot of problems in the world, but I think I found a solution. Jacinda Ardern. If you don't know who this incredible badass of a woman is, this is Jacinda Ardern, aka my hero, aka my real Prime Minister. Sorry. I've kind of adopted her. I still like ours, I respect him, but she's the one that we deserve. If you guys don't know her, she is the 40th Prime Minister of New Zealand. And earlier this year, she became a global phenomenon. When on the 15th of March, a homegrown Australian terrorist went to New Zealand, went to Christchurch and committed mass murder against the Muslim community. In the mere minutes it took for him to enter and leave, over 50 people were murdered. Another 50 were injured. And in a time of great fear, Jacinda rose to the occasion and used the language of unity, of hope, of inclusion to bring her people together by not falling into the trap of an us versus them, but instead, she said, they are us. This was her rallying cry. When leaders started to call her, she would answer and she would accept their thoughts and their prayers. Until one man called her. That man was Donald Trump. When Donald Trump called up Jacinda, she told him that it's great that you care about us. But in my own words of what she said, she did not give a damn. She told him that it was through his actions of spreading fear and division, of capitalizing on otherness in order to increase his base, that he was spreading this form of nationalism that is capitalizing our entire world, that brought a white nationalist to New Zealand and destroyed communities. So in this moment of tragedy, Jacinda was able to, one, call the action of what it was, an act of terror. Two, she decided not to ever say the terrorist's name. And she told everyone else not to do the same, because this moment was not on the perpetrator, rather it was on the survivors. And three, she created a language of respect, unseen in politics for a long time, by wearing a hijab, by going to communities, by saying that for the rest of their lives, she and her country will support them. I was really moved by Jacinda Ardern because, as I said, I've been around leaders for a really long time. When I was 19 years old, I started working with World Vision, and I had absolutely no leadership experience, but I wanted to make a difference because of what my other Zina told me of her lives growing up overseas, of what I saw during 9/11. And my experiences with with World Vision led me to incredible places. I ended up going to the White House, being invited by Michelle Obama to talk about gender equality. Now that was crazy, because I was not able to drink yet in America. I think I really needed one that day. I remember walking into the White House and the security officers, they made us walk through the guards. They patted us down. It was really weird. We went into this really light-filled room, and this person came in. She was like, "Please be standing and ready, because you're just about to meet the First Lady of the United States." I'm like, what? Serious? My heart was beating so quickly. I could not remember much of what happened next, until all of a sudden, I feel a person in front of me give me a giant hug. It was Michelle. She hugged me and she said, "Breathe. It's okay. It's really nice to meet you." And I'm like, oh my God, Michelle Obama is hugging me? This is so cool. But I went from a girl growing up in Australia to suddenly being in the White House because I took steps to be courageous, to follow my passions. And from what I learned from that meeting with Michelle is that young people have immense power to make a difference. It's the fact that we do not need to wait for our leaders' permission to step into our greatness. And that is exactly what Jacinda did. In that moment, what I like to call the Jacinta effect, she was able to defy all of the stereotypes that women in leadership face. You guys know the ones. It is, women are too weak to be leaders. They are too unstable, emotional. They can't handle a crisis. Well, she did a really fantastic job. Jacinda was called, she was too young to be a leader. She wasn't experienced enough. She only became the leader of her party after 2 months. And then 2 months later, she was Prime Minister. She is the youngest female Prime Minister in the history of the world. She is able to demonstrate that young people have the capacity not only to be leaders in their own communities, but to be leaders of the world. She is redefining the old traditional stereotypes of what leadership is that has been crafted by centuries. And this effect has given other women across the globe permission to do the same. Women like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, women like those in the squad, who are standing up and fighting for the rights and demanding a seat at the table that has been taken away from us for centuries. Now we recognize that if they don't invite us in, we don't care. Instead, we are going to create our own table. We are going to keep fighting until we get there, until we grab that power, because we recognize that what we need in 2030 is all of us. We recognize that we cannot achieve the goals that our leaders set out for us back in 2015 if half of the world's population are not included. So this is what I've been trying to do with my organisation, Jasiri. In Jasiri, inspired again by the leaders who have come before me, I created a program called Girls Take Over Parliament. Girls Take Over Parliament is a program where we are trying to redefine leadership. We're trying to make democracy inclusive of our communities. During this, we bring young women from all across Australia into Parliament where they get to write their own human rights into existence. Working with politicians, they write speeches and motions. They get trained in becoming civic leaders. In the last 2 years that we've run this program, over 120 women have become alumni. We have passed over 97 speeches written by young women for young women. 10 motions have been passed affecting over 4 million people. Again, this is written by 19 and 20-year-olds. The program has been so successful, we have now launched in Tonga. When they came to us and they said, hey, we love your program, can you bring it to us? I remember that day that they said this, I think it was 11 p.m. at night, I was in my bed, and I get this message on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, okay. You do realise that this is a volunteer-led program. And they're like, we have waited so long for our leaders to bring us to the table, we can no longer wait anymore. So last year, we launched in Tonga, and this year we're bringing it to Fiji, to the Solomon Islands, and to Papua New Guinea, where there is currently 0 women in politics. What I have learnt over my journey is that what we need in 2030 is more of the Jacinta effect. It is more of her type of leadership, courageous, bold, empathetic, inclusive. We need young people to be able to be given the opportunity to build those intergenerational partnerships with those who are our elders, so that together we can learn and bridge the gaps that has been constructed by others. One of my favorite quotes is by Malala, and she said that if one man can destroy everything, then why can't one young person change everything? Thank you.